Hello, my name is Morrow. I did wash my hands, and I am glad that I'm back here. Fortunately, my farm is just about 10 minutes off of campus, so it is pretty local. I am owner-operator of Whitmore Farm. It is a very small farm by today's modern farming definition. Most farms are measured in thousands of acres. Unfortunately today, Whitmore Farm is 30 acres. We are certified organic by the USDA, and we are a meat farm, or protein as they like to call it in the trade. So our crops are sheep and goats and pigs and chickens and in some cases rabbits as well as a growing part of our farm. We sell primarily at farmers markets and what the economists call direct-to-consumer sales, which is a very, very small fraction of agricultural commerce. The vast majority of commerce is done, ag commerce is done through, they're treated as commodities and sold on the wholesale market to distributors who then in turn sell them to grocery stores and restaurants. So it goes through several hands before it actually ever reaches the consumer. So this is almost heresy according to some. And then we also sell to restaurants in DC, Baltimore, and Frederick, and occasionally the common market, the co-op that you heard about earlier today. I am not a person with a long history of farming in my background. I just purchased this farm in 2003. It represents a career change for me. Okay, in 8th century BC, Greeks would assemble in an open space, usually flanked by columns and buildings, to hear statements of the ruling king or council. The same space was used as a marketplace where merchants kept stalls or shops to sell their goods. This space was called agora. This is where the term agoraphobia stems from, the fear of critical public situations. The Romans had the form, which was essentially the same thing, an open space surrounded by columns where politicians, food, and sport would play out. More locally, the city of Frederick had markouts, where city officials would govern upstairs with an open market surrounded by columns and arches below for commerce. And that's what you see in the photograph there. For those of you that know Frederick Ware, know Frederick well, that is now the site of Brewer's Alley. What is really impressive is that villages, towns, and cities across different cultures and across 2.5 centuries have all had a central building or space dedicated to the two most important aspects of modern man, politics and food. Politics, the ability to organize and function as a group with common rules and laws, and food, man's ability to domesticate wild animals, collect and sow seeds so that they could settle into villages and towns. Then in a bad twist of fate, reminiscent of a Jimmy Buffett song, Frederick Marketplace was razed in 1958 and turned into a parking lot. Joni Mitchell, thank you. This coincided with the advent of large grocery stores, which transformed food distribution across the nation. Okay, so now I'm going to try to cover the next 60 years in about 10 seconds, so excuse me if I've left anything out. But in the 1960s, race riots and other socioeconomic factors further altered the urban landscape. Grocery stores turned their back on urban centers and focused on the explosive growth that was occurring in the suburbs. When I moved back to DC in 1989 after I graduated from college, DC, which is not a poor city by any means, had only maybe a half a dozen grocery stores serving a population of about 500,000 people. None of them were particularly large or nice. It was a real joke. Everyone would drive outside the city to Maryland or Virginia to do the grocery shopping. Agriculture turned into agribusiness and became industrialized. Family farms with local distribution are replaced by corporations. Distribution is consolidated. Around the 1990s, the banal existence of suburban life starts to take its toll. The new generation wants something different. Wealth starts to migrate back to the cities. Grocery stores follow. What family farms remain look for creative ways to survive economically. Industrialization benefited corporations and not the individual farmers themselves. Focus becomes on quality and not quantity. Books and films have had an enormous impact on the success of small family farms and farmers markets by exposing the realities of cheap industrialized food production. The human cost in the way of inferior nutrition and obesity, the environmental costs, the collapse of the Chesapeake Bay commercial fishery being a local example, and the cost to animals and human dignity. Farm employees, once highly skilled in the sciences, things like breeding, horticulture, veterinary science, the art of butchering, have now been replaced mostly with illegal immigrants and in some cases prisoners on work release programs. Michael Pollan is probably the most famous writer, but Joel Salatin has probably done more than any other farmer in the country to highlight the plight of small family farms and the hypocrisy of U.S. food policy. And there are many others out there that have contributed to the food revolution, like chefs Alice Waters, Nora Pouillon, and many others. Farmers markets continue to sprout up everywhere. It's really amazing. The statistics are staggering, but they're also constantly in flux as some of them succeed, some of them will change and move to new blocks and new neighborhoods. Different nonprofit community groups will form, then disband, and new ones will replace them. And some of them do fail. If you look at all of the data though, it's clear that this food movement is more than just a fad. One of the things that really drove that point home for me was when I learned about the corn lobby and the Midwestern Farm Lobby coming into DC specifically to oppose some incredible minor funding for sustainable agriculture in the last round of the Farm Bill. I mean, it must have been something like 0.0001% of all the money on the table. But they clearly saw what was coming down the road and wanted to try to stop this as quickly as possible. Many people might not realize, but farmers markets provide economic opportunities for city dwellers as well. Farmers markets serve as a business incubator for people wanting to open their own business. Startup costs are very low. For example, you don't have to find a commercial store front in a prime location and commit to a long-term lease. Farmers markets allow you to fine-tune your product based on customer feedback, experiment with packaging and pricing. Farmers markets allow you to penetrate the market and develop a brand. If you're lucky, you get some press coverage, your business grows, you start taking wholesale clients. As you gain the business knowledge and build up capital, you're poised to get a business loan and grow the company and get that commercial storefront in a prime location if that's your goal. Economic benefits to the surrounding rural community are even greater. Small family farms that are financially successful spend a lot of money in the local community. Obvious beneficiaries are the local feed mills, local butcher, local hardware stores, local lumber yards, local contractors, the carpenters, plumbers, electricians, and painters that build and maintain farm buildings. Farms tend to have a lot of buildings. Small family farms hire local people, and in general they pay better wages. They even hire other farms to do contract growing for them. Farm equipment has become very specialized and very expensive. So for certain crops, it just doesn't make sense for a family farm. They can't afford to buy that. So farmers will hire each other. There's a whole economy that sprouts up around a successful farm. Farmers markets also provide a stage for social interactions and bonds to be formed among neighbors. It doesn't matter what your political affiliation is, your religion. Food is a great equalizer. We all eat, and we all need to purchase food. Slogans are popping up everywhere. Who's your favorite farmer? I never would have thought that I would utter that phrase having grown up, walking the vast aisles of a modern grocery store, looking for the latest cereal and other processed food that I could talk my mother into buying. Here's some examples of the impacts of the farmers markets that I just talked about. This is what our farm looked like when we purchased it in 2003. It hadn't been farmed in decades. It was another victim of our failed farm policy, and what was once a prosperous family farm had become a blight to the community. This is what our farm looks like now, after we hired an army of local craftsmen to renovate and update the buildings for farming in the 21st century. This was after many folks have tried to talk us into just raising everything down and putting up something new. It doesn't get any more entrepreneurial than this. Gloria makes great salsa, packs it up in her car, and she drives to market. These are the type of opportunities the American dream is made of. Hard work and dedication with the hope of making it big. It sounds silly, but remember, Starbucks only started with one store. Karen's Cakes, another success story. Last I spoke with her, she was selling her cakes to multiple coffee shops across DC. She started cooking in her kitchen. Both she and Gloria aren't farmers. They're examples of city residents who are finding economic opportunities at farmers markets. This is your modern agora. Tents in a central courtyard surrounded by buildings. The only thing missing are the Greek columns and maybe some live animals. Here's your suburban grocery box store equivalent. Farmers markets are more than just a place to purchase healthy food raised in a sustainable manner. You have young people, old people, middle-aged people, neighbors all interacting and socializing. This is how you weave the fabric of a community, social interaction. It makes people feel connected. I should also point out that farmers markets that provide enrichment activities, a children's play area, live music, things like along that line, are the most successful markets, both economically for the vendors and socially for the community. So this is, again, the box store equivalent. I stood in this grocery store for a while trying to capture shoppers interacting with each other. It didn't happen. And I stayed there. The first shots that you've seen, well, all the shots that you're seeing in my presentation of the farmer's market were literally taken in 5 minutes as I ran away from my stand, realizing that I've got to talk in a few days. The grocery store, I was there 45 minutes. There were people in the grocery store that were interacting amongst themselves, people that came together, clearly units of a family, friends, roommates even, but they weren't talking to other folks in those aisles. Finally, the store management was getting nervous, and that's what I was doing. In this age of reporting suspicious activity, it's really hard to walk around with a camera. Christine Rosen this morning spoke of serendipitous social interactions. This is not manufactured serendipity. This is genuine. These people do not come to the farmer's market together. As you can see, they're not in a hurry to leave. This is the checkout aisles of the grocery store. The only social interaction occurring here is among employees talking to each other about their plans for the evening. That's another interesting aspect. This is my neighborhood grocery store. I've been shopping here for 8 years. The employees change every few months. There is no, "Hi, Mr. Morrow, how are you doing today?" They aren't there long enough to get to know their customers. I don't think they even want to know who I am. It's not the culture of the company. It's not the culture of most companies these days. Patrick Deneen this morning spoke of loyalty to place. There's no loyalty happening here, either from the employees or from the customers. At the farmers markets, I see many of the same people every week. The other vendors, their staff, and the customers. They know my name, and if I don't remember their name, I remember that their daughter just graduated from high school, or that they just came back from a vacation that they had told me about planning to take earlier in the season. Or I'll notice that they're suddenly wearing a cast on their leg that they didn't have last week. Our conversations are providing a small thread that contributes to the fabric of a community. We are forming social bonds, we are connecting, and setting the stage for loyalty to place. Again, not just food. Here's a tent where cyclists can come up and get a free tune-up for their bike, and then the neighbors start talking about coming bike events or races. It's another example of enrichment to facilitate social interaction in a market. The last thought I'd like to leave you with is how you spend your money shapes the world around you. If you shop at Costco, we'll have more Costcos, with garlic from China and oranges from Ecuador, and all the other baggage that comes with those corporations. If you shop at farmers markets, we'll have more farmers markets. It's really that simple. And it's a choice that you make every day. Do you go to McDonald's for lunch, or do you stop at that small family-owned sandwich place? Thank you.